not good.
We're not good criers.
On the edge. Okay, good. Man, I'm like didn't sleep.
Welcome to First Alarm Family First. We are coming to you once again from community newspapers. It is September 11th, 2025, and we cannot say that date without remembering what happened 24 years ago. I'm Jen Herrera.
Yes. Today, September 11th, we pause to remember and honor the lives of those who tragically lost their lives. We hold in our hearts the first responders, the families that will forever be changed, the invisible wounds, what they all witnessed. Today also reminds us of the critical importance of mental health for our first responders, because events like these leave a lasting impact both mentally and physically. We are also joined today by State Representative Omar Blanco, a Miami Dade firefighter, past president of Local 1403, and now a strong voice in the Florida House for first responders, safety, and mental health. Thank you for being here with us today.
Ladies, thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you. I'm such a big fan of all the good work you all are doing. I think it's important that the voice of, spouses and family of firefighters is heard, and it's very impactful. And I think sometimes we have more power than our voice alone. So thank you for having me.
No, listen, we appreciate it. We've been trying to make this happen for a while. I think it is appropriate that it finally did happen today. I want to give you a shout out because you've had a busy morning already. We have some pictures to prove it. You were down at Tropical Park for the Miami Dade Fire Rescue September 11th ceremony. There you are with my husband.
Yes. Told him to get me a late pass.
Yeah. Listen, we understand. And I just want to, I don't want to call you out, but there's some mud on your shoes.
Yes.
There's some mud on your pants.
I need to show it.
Because listen, we can dress you guys up. I love it. We can dress you up. We can put you in your nice jackets and your blues. We can iron them. But at your core, sir,
yes, ma'am,
you are still a firefighter.
Amen.
And
yes.
People become firefighters to help others.
Yes.
You push somebody out of the mud today.
Yes.
It's kind of like where your career started, right? Helping people.
Yep. I talked about that today. I actually, before I went to the 9/11 ceremony, I was asked by a local school, to come by and speak to the youth. And that was what I talked. They asked me, why did you become a firefighter? Why did you become a state rep? And I said, since I was a little kid, I love to help people. And I think that's built into who we are. You both know this very well, and it to me, it's something we're very proud of. It is the most rewarding part about the job, and that's why we're all so passionate about trying to protect that part of the job. It's a beautiful thing. It's rewarding, and like I said, I'm so appreciative of everything you two are doing to help get that information out. And we watched it. People have asked me about it, and
awesome.
And so it's surreal to be here, honestly, because we've been communicating for such a long time, right. Rescheduled on several occasions, and as the man upstairs would have it, we'd be here together on 9/11. So not forgotten.
Yeah, God is good. He made everything happen on today.
Amen.
Yes. So 24 years later, after September 11th, how does that feel?
So, it's a somber day, right? I mean, we reflect on, what those brave men and women did, how our job as wording has its fragility, right? I mean, at any moment, you never know. I mean, so for me, it's more about, because I was talking to the youth today, and none of them were around in 9/11, right? So, in talking to them, I said, I know you weren't there, but your parents were around, during the time. And what I think your part of this is how you honor the sacrifice of 9/11 and what occurred is by fighting and protecting and serving one another, right? I mean, I think if we teach our kids that's what's most important. The most important lesson of 9/11 was 9/12, right? Everybody talks about the next day. Nobody was fighting. There was no division in this country. And I think that, ironically, with some of the tragedy that happened yesterday, we find ourselves in a situation where it's needed more than ever. And we don't necessarily want another 9/11 to have to create that. I mean, that's absurd to even hear myself saying it. But imagine, if you would, that we could be united on issues that are about family and faith and all the blessings that we have in our lives. Live in the greatest country in the world, and yet we find ourselves with a very divisive world, and country sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard. Like my stomach hurts right now, because we're talking about 9/11. You alluded to, of course, what happened with Charlie Kirk yesterday and him being assassinated while speaking to students, right? We talk about the divisiveness. I want to talk about politics as far as your role, right, and your venture into politics, because it can be such a touchy subject. It can be such a divisive subject. It stinks that it is. Right. But staying on 9/11 for a few more seconds here.
Yeah.
How did firefighting change? How did firefighters change as of 9/12?
That's great. I wasn't on the department actually at the time. So for me, I actually went right out of high school. I went straight to fire college, and Miami Dade. I wanted to work for Miami Dade, best department. That's a shot against my brother, who's a city firefighter captain.
I mean, a little shot, right? Maybe a little jab.
But my point is that I think it changed. I think it was just like Surfside. I mean, I don't want to draw comparisons, but it was such an event that was not common that it really, even as we saw it, we were challenged, in having to approach a scene that ultimately required units from all over the country, So I think it just gave us a lesson, right? I think that's important. I always tell my kids, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, and in that moment, that dark moment, I think it brought the best out of us, and it has continued to make this profession one that people care very deeply for. So.
So from the firehouse to the State House,
yes.
Rep. Blanco, how has your work, because I know your tirelessly efforts working towards things, 2 bills passed, yes. You pushed forward. Can you explain a little bit about the 2 bills?
Which ones particularly?
The House bill.
You'd have to give me the number.
376.
Yeah,
376.
And the 421.
376. Yeah. So 376 is the one from 2018. So I was president of the firefighters back then, and 2 things that we were working on was mental health and cancer. And if Tallahassee is, you can have a wish list of things that you want to fix, but you've really got to target in on one particular issue. And that year we had an issue in another part of the state where the wife of the person that committed suicide was very very vocal about the concerns, and so it grabbed the attention of the state. It grabbed the attention of our former CFO, Jimmy Petronas, and it really was important that we push that legislation. And we were, obviously up there telling our stories. I often think to myself, it's never somebody you'd expect, right? Like you look at Robin Williams, and respectfully, Alex, as I love dearly. It's never somebody you expect. So I think that it shifted gears for us that year, and we were able to get something across the finish line. It wasn't perfect. By the way, no bill ever is perfect, right? It's always a work in progress, and I think we've been able to come back year after year and make it just a better bill and a better bill. And now I think it's a pretty good bill, and we're always open to listen and see what we can do to improve it and make it better for, preventive and for the families who suffer loss. So I think that's really our guiding light, and for me as a firefighter, what people talk about in theory in Tallahassee, we live firsthand, right? So I think that's where I come in and I tell people, well, listen, that's not how it really happens. Let me explain to you. We're welcomed into people's homes. We come in during the most difficult times. And I think that sometimes there's a perception of what they see on TV, what they might see on the news. But the reality is, we're very tight. We work very well together. And we have to look out for one another, and I think that's what really drives me in this role and the role that I did as president.
And I think you bring such a unique perspective. With that said, I have to ask though, firefighting and politics, right? Because I grew up with a firefighter, right? One raised me, and let me tell you.
By the way, I should have mentioned your dad. One of the most amazing people I have ever met. I've had the pleasure of even talking to him after post-retirement, but talk about a legend in the department. Your old man is what this fire service today is all about. He and the people he served with built a foundation that we can proudly stand on. So kudos to the old man. Huh?
Thank you for that. With that said, though, let's be honest. He wouldn't survive at a certain level of politics because of, people can be a little rough around the edges, let's say.
Yes.
I love him dearly, and he is the best. And thank you for those kind words.
Of course.
Truly. How do you go from being a firefighter? We know that there was the union presidency in between there, to what you're doing now. Is that something that you always saw yourself doing? Because a lot of firefighters, I just can't see them in those shoes. Or was it something that just kind of evolved naturally?
I think me being in this position evolved, and I'm kind of, everybody asks me, hey, what's your plan? I'm on God's plan. Like, I never thought I'd be sitting here in front of you ladies talking about, the issues at the state level, let alone a fireman. Like, I will tell you right now that I'm a firefighter today because everything happened the way it had to happen to put me in a position to be here. I'm a state representative for the very same reasons. And wherever my career goes from here, whether I retire and go home and live somewhere, as most firefighters do, I'm on God's plan. But I'm sorry, back to your question. I kind of...
How did that happen? Was there an aha moment for you where it was like, hey, you know what? I love what I'm doing. I love helping people. I want to help people in a different way. Yes. This is what's needed in the department. So what was that moment?
That's funny. I'm glad you said that. It reminded me. Thank you. Two things. One is when we were up in Tallahassee pushing for PTSD and cancer legislation, our cancer bill was one of the most debated bills in the Florida House. I mean, if you look at it, we had like 80-something co-sponsors, and that never happens. It's rare for it to happen. I've never had somebody go through the history books and see, if it's the most co-sponsored bill. But we got so much resistance. And, what happened with that bill was we were told halfway through the year, hey, listen, it's not happening. There's no appetite for it necessarily at the leadership side. You guys can pack your bags and go home. And so maybe the Miami Dade guy out of me.
There's 305.
Wait a second.
And listen, another guy who I took a picture with, not just your husband, was Laz Pareda. Laz Pareda was sitting next to me. And I looked at him and I said, did he just say we were done? And he's like, yep, that's what he said. And I said, I made a note. Everybody came up, and then I ultimately said, I got up on the mic and I said, listen, guys, you guys can pack your stuff home. But as far as me and my guys, we're staying here till the very end. And I hope I'm talking loud enough. I don't mean to talk low, but so we stayed. And that was halfway through session. So we had another 4 to 5 weeks, and we went through that bill door to door, knocking. We were doing interviews, podcasts, TV, radio. And the week before session died, they called me and said, hey, your bill's going to go to the floor. And that wasn't my bill. Listen, I got to give credit to the Florida professional firefighters, my local firefighters from all over the state, because the minute I stood up and said, we're staying, everybody says, we're staying as well. Right. And it built what we do best, right? But anyways, long story short, because I know I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but that was the first time that I was asked by elected officials if I would be interested in running. And I kind of said, oh, maybe, I don't know, we'll see you. And then the opportunity came up. I ran in 2020. And then didn't happen. I thought it was done. And then now this opportunity came up. I got a call from my guys, and I said, absolutely. And it's been a roller coaster ride. It's been amazing. You get to help people. It's like firefighting, but on steroids.
Right.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Right.
So it's pretty cool.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So mental health is still one of the biggest challenges for first responders.
Yes.
From your perspective, what are the top mental health issues they're dealing with today?
Oh, that's a good one. I was thinking about it on the way here. They talk about PTSD, right? I mean, listen, the things we see, nobody sees. I got in a debate in Tallahassee about, PTSD or something to that nature. And I said, listen, have any of you held a baby in your arms and done CPR? And everybody kind of goes, all right, well, hold on a second. This guy has a different point of view. And listen, these are tragedies we see regularly. Our guys see it every day. And so those are the things that weigh on you, you know. And listen, till this day, I can talk about some of my calls and it'll choke me up. But I've been able to kind of compartmentalize it in such a way that I know that I have to use that experience to do something good. And so that's number one. Number two, society. I mean, we talked about Charlie Kirk the other day. You're hearing firefighters getting shot in parts of the world. And I've got my colleagues in the Florida House say, what do we got to do for firefighters? Do we give them guns? And I'm like, no, we don't. We want to stay out of the line of fire. That's what our amazing police officers do. And I love our cops. I mean, kudos to them that, you know, they do amazing work. I've been saved by a cop on a call, and I've had the honor of saving a cop on a call. So, it's really a beautiful partnership, an amazing partnership. But I think that's the issue. Nobody understands us the way cops and firefighters, nobody understands us. And much to your credit, ladies, I will say, I tell every cop and firefighter, you're not a real cop and a firefighter if you haven't been at a party, one of your wife's parties, and at some point your wife grabs you and goes, hey, these are not your firefighter friends. You know, we have a sense of humor that is often not understood, but it's how we cope a lot of times. And I think that, you know, and I was telling these kids this morning, how we cope too is service. Helping people is the most amazing rush of peace that you get, because you're like, wow, you know, it's so rewarding to help people. And I think that's it. But society today, with what's going on, you know, we talked about Charlie Kirk earlier, and those things are concerning to us. You know, it's just we've got to find the peace and common ground and really focus on mental health. Because not only mental health for firefighters, first responder, but what's causing some of these crazy things that are happening out there. So, you know, for my guys, I'm always keeping a pulse on the situation. I'm asking my guys, hey, what's going on? You know, I would always tell my department when I was union president, chief, listen, we're cracking down on sick time and all these procedures, which is part of how you run an operation.
Right.
But I did say, chief, if the guy's getting divorced, has a kid in the hospital, has mothers dying or family dying, you know, going through a tough time, let's ease off, because this job we do, as you ladies know, is adrenaline 1 minute, complete peace another. And that really, you know, you medically and scientifically, you talk about all the different chemical changes that go in the body. So I think it's important that we're always looking at innovative ways and working collaboratively, because my biggest issue with mental health is there's so many people, so many parts involved, and so many ideas, and we want to make sure that we kind of invest as a state or as a federal government on mental health, and then have almost a group to kind of subdivide research, you know, and things like that. So I think those are the things. Is there something you ladies feel that needs to be addressed? Because I'm always open to listen, especially from a spouse who knows, you know.
No, I think everything you said is accurate. I think you touched on so many things that we often talk about. You said, and forgive me if I'm getting the state wrong, I believe it was Iowa, because you talked about the firefighters who were responding to the call. It was the wildfire, forest fire.
It was a couple of them in the last 6 months.
And there ended up being a person there who intentionally shot and killed firefighters. We talk about mental health, right, and how it affects our firefighters and our first responders, our police officers, our veterans as well. Mental health, you have physical injuries, right? That fight or flight constantly, that does a number on your body physically, right? Cortisol levels from not sleeping. But there's something called like moral injury as well. After 9/11, firefighters had so much support in this country. Yeah. Everybody loved the firefighters. Everybody loved America. There were American flags everywhere. I remember, like, my dad was the best. He still is. But you know what I mean? Like, it was that, not just me, like America as a whole had that. So there was that morally, right? Our first responders had to feel good. When we know that firefighters are intentionally being called to calls sometimes now to be shot, to be killed.
Yes.
Our police officers, we know, in the past few years have dealt with a lot.
Yes.
That's got to hurt morally, and that impacts first responders.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think, you know, often in our police officers, like I said, God bless them, they are in the line of fire a lot more than we are in when it comes to, you know, this violence. But we're seeing a trend, you know, and yeah, you're right. I mean, our guys and girls just want to do their job. Yeah. You mentioned politics. They don't want to get involved in politics. They have their strong beliefs. You know, you get to a firehouse, you got the accountant, the lawyer, the doctor. Everybody's got an expertise, and that's an old joke at the firehouse table. But But yeah, I think that, we've got to make sure that we protect firefighters from rhetoric, from politics. Nope, we shouldn't be politicizing our police and fire. Right. I feel very strongly that if I were to sit in a firehouse, right? If we were sitting in a firehouse, my guys are like, they have opinions, but they say it like it is. They're not going to be careful with what they say, be politically correct. Not a thing that happens in the firehouse. And sometimes when outsiders see that, they're a little bit shock and awe.
Of course, yeah.
But it's how we stay connected. It's how we keep it real, how we know that when we're saving somebody, it doesn't matter your background, your beliefs, what political party, who you voted for. The bell rings, we respond. And I think that that's important for not only everyone to remember, but also that's kind of what drives me in my position is to remember when somebody calls my office and asks for help, or somebody asks for help. By the way, I'm state rep in 115, but as my guys would say it, I'm every firefighter's rep, which I'm proud to have that.
Yeah,
but when they call me for help, I don't worry about how they feel about this, that, and the other. I kind of listen in and see how we can help and make sure we're there to serve. So.
Since it's Suicide Awareness Month, it's a crucial time to talk about remembrance and recognition.
Yes.
I don't know if you know that Florida has 2 firefighter memorials, the Fallen Firefighter Memorial in Ocala and the State Capitol Memorial in Tallahassee.
Yes, been to both.
Neither of them currently honor the loss to suicide.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on recognizing suicide as line of duty?
I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. It's a line of service injury, right? Like it just simply is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Suicide has been talked about people are afraid to talk about it, and that's where I think things like the things you all are doing are important because we got to put it out in the forefront, right? We got to talk about it. It's real. Right. I don't know. Sometimes when I find out that someone's taken their life, I'm set back, right? I'm like, God, I thought we had all these things covered. Right. And then when you find out that someone doesn't reach for help, you're kind of like, you go back to the drawing board. And, people come to my office like, we PTSD for that. I had college kids say they had PTSD up in Tallahassee this year. And I was like, okay, what's the matter? Well, I get anxious when I take a test. And I go, that's not PTSD, man. I go, that's not PTSD. I go, let me explain something to you. You know what that anxiety is? It is your body telling you that you have to study more for that test. And, you don't want to peddle to you and shake it. And I go, no, I'm not done. I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to study your butt off for that test. I want you to take that test. And when you score good on that test, now your anxiety is going to start lowering. You're still going to be a little anxious on the next test, but the more and more you do it, the better you do it, the less anxious you become. You are not seeing bodies and death and destruction the way my guys do. And with all due respect, I know that there's mental health issues outside of PTSD, and that's important to address also. But we've got to be able to take a serious look at it, honor those people, and learn. The best way we honor them, besides putting their name on the plaque and making sure that we don't forget them, because that's important, is also to do something about what's causing it. I've been in my office when I was firefighter president, and I had a firefighter that walked into my office and sat in the kitchen, and my staff said, hey, there's somebody in the kitchen. Something's not right. And I went in there. Whenever there was a firefighter issue, I would stop right away, if it was a severe issue. And I walk in there. I'm like, hey, bud, what's up? And he's like, oh, man, no more, man. I'm just kind of going through something. I go, close the door, made some coffee, 2.5 hours sitting there talking. And I'm like, listen, brother, call me. Call your guys at your station. Call. Yes. And he was just going through a tough time in his life. We all go through a tough time. But I think when we go through a tough time, it is like hypersensitive for some reason. If I could tell a quick story,
yes, of course.
My son got bit by a shark a couple of years ago, and listen, I've always felt like if I do more for the fire service than the fire service does for me, that's how I want to end this party, and my career. But 2 years ago, my son's life was saved from a shark attack. Did you know about that, Jen?
I did know about that. Yeah, I had forgotten until you said it. Yes.
So it's the day the fire service paid me back,
right?
And then some. So it's like a very like you talk. I get choked up thinking about it, but it is one of those things where I never wanted it to pay me back. I never wanted it, but it did, and I think that to me, I'll forever grateful, right? But I think that's it, man. I think ultimately at the end of the day, we've got to be able to learn from what's going on, and we've got to be able to put good ideas on the table, not whose ideas on the table.
Right.
Hear what I'm saying? Good ideas, not whose idea. Because it's always about, well, is that a Democrat or Republican? If you're in Tallahassee, oh, do I like that guy? Do I not like that guy? Come on, listen. If you're concerned about getting people to like you, then that's not what this is. Life is all about. You know, we need to focus on that. So to your question, and I ramble on. I hope you have a great editor.
No, this is live, my friend. So you're
So
good.
I missed that part in the. I kept thinking to myself, okay, good, they'll take that out, you know. But I think that's just it. You know, we've got to do that. We've got to talk about it, and we've got to correct our course. And but to your point, I think you said it is like politics. Like, I don't want you politicizing my firefighters. My firefighters don't want to be politicized. They don't.
Right.
They don't. I've served in that capacity for 23 years. I'll continue to do so as long as God allows me to. But I will tell you is they just want to do their jobs. Right. And you talk about injuries in the fire service. You break your leg in the fire service, you should be treated like an athlete, a quarterback out of the professional NFL team. You hurt your leg, you go into a doctor, you get an x-ray or an MRI, you get surgery, PT, boom, and you're back in the field. That is the greatest investment the fire service has, and that is where we need to be. Nowadays, sometimes you have to wait months before you get seen, and you know, I'm sure with PTSD it's the same thing. We've got to express that recovery because a healthier firefighter in a short amount of time and police officer is a better service that we provide our community. I think often that's lost. But yeah, I can go on.
No, I like that what you talked about, and not to take away from someone who is suffering from anxiety, of course, but the student who referred to their anxiety as PTSD. I liked that point, you know, because there's definitely a differential. With that said, and we've talked about this as well, like you hear mental health, mental wellness so much sometimes that you don't want it to lose what it really is at its core and who it's really affecting.
Yes.
I've made this statement before, and I don't mean to take what happened to these two individuals, including Alex, lightly. I consider Bill Gustin franchise firefighters, if you will. Okay?
Absolutely.
What they meant to not only Miami Dade Fire, but to fire departments across South Florida and nationally, and Gustin internationally, to a certain extent. Losing these two individuals to suicide, how did that forever change the fire department?
So you know, on both, Gustin, like you said, internationally known, an inspiration to a lot of people, and I think it kind of it's a gut check for us. Yeah. You know, I mean, I know exactly where I was when I got the call on Alex, and who called me to tell me, and I remember every detail, and it almost seems surreal because I've known Alex for a long time, and you know. Julius Perez, who was one of our dearest friends, as you know, was a guy, my inspiration to get cancer done. He was one of my closest friends. And Alex and I would talk about Julius all the time. Hey, we got to get him better. We got to get him. Then we'd have the real talk. Hey, is he going to get better? Well, we got to keep pushing. Don't talk negative in front of him. And to see a guy like Alex go through that, to me, was like earth shattering. Like, I didn't go to the funeral. I just couldn't make it. And that I couldn't make it time-wise. I couldn't make it. Like, I really was lost for like 3 or 4 days. I don't comprehend it. It's always the good guys, right? And Bill Gustin being a phenomenal leader, a phenomenal educator, a guy who cared. He lived and breathed this work. To see him go also was tragic. I think it's just tragic, and I think people are hurting because of this. And during Surfside, to give you an example of how we compartmentalize things, right? During Surfside, we were across the street from the victims' families who were screaming for their families. And our guys were out there digging. I was in a different capacity, but they were out there digging. And I'll never forget one of our guys, Bigling, I think his last name is, I'm pretty sure it was him. He took one of our shirts and he wrote, and I'll send you the picture later, but he wrote a note on the shirt saying, hey, we know you're hurting, in a nutshell. We're hurting too. We just can't show it because we're focused. And that's the thing about our job is we're always on. It is amazing to me how even for a tough call for us, the soon as that you turn that patient into the hospital or as soon as you walk away, you have this like, I don't even know how to explain the feeling, but it's like if they just threw 100 pounds on your shoulder and you're walking with it. I've been on a tragic call, and I probably had 3 days of just kind of like somber mode. I didn't know like how I feel today about Charlie Kirk, with 9/11, and I mean, I think for every firefighter, 9/11 is something very powerful that we kind of know we have to honor, and we have to rise to the occasion, and we know, and that's a pressure we're proud to take. It's not, but to hold the Charlie Kirk thing, there's a lot of people suffering with Charlie Kirk, and yet on the other side of that coin, there are people celebrating it.
That's insane.
I don't know. Now imagine you're a police officer and a firefighter in operations, running calls, and what happens if somebody were to say something. And listen, our guys are very passionate, compassionate men and women. They are, just like our police officers. Imagine being on a call and someone challenging you on that. You are only human. Yeah. With the cameras nowadays. Thank you. I got to represent Representative Rizzo, who filed the HALO bill for police and fire years ago, where people don't come up in camera. It's like, I have a right to do it. I'm like, listen, man, I don't have a problem with the camera. I have a problem that this is a patient. They have a family. Right, exactly. One of the things I'm working on, now that I think of it, is a bill that makes homicide pictures not public information. Public records request. You cannot public record request a homicide pictures. Imagine your loved one. We've had stories where 16-year-old kids who were murdered. The people asking for the pictures. I think there has to be some sense of dignity, for all aspects of what we're talking about today, that we as a country and as a nation rise above.
What else are you working on?
Oh, that's a good one. So I'm working on some stuff. Let me think. God, we just went over this. I feel a little.
Are you on the spot? That's okay.
No, it's okay, because I went so many things that I'd like to do. By the way, I have a wish list of so many things. Obviously, listen. I was telling somebody today, I filed a FRS COLA bill last year. I'm filing it again, and I'll tell you why. Because imagine, if you would, where prices are today, the price to survive today. If our teachers, our firefighters, our police officers, our workers, once they retire on a fixed income, we see what's happening to people with fixed incomes today. They're unable to sustain their lives. And here are people who've dedicated. Look, I like to talk about cops and firefighters, but our teachers are amazing, and I'm married to one, so I've got a little extra special.
You're a
for
smart
me.
man to bring that up.
But to make sure that they're protected is important. Look, the talk of property taxes continues to rear its head around, and listen, we've got to do something, because our property values have doubled in essence, and we've got to make sure we make living in South Florida priority wise. Our elderly on fixed income should be able to live without having to worry how to put food on the table and work our way back. I think that's one thing. Property insurance for me is my almost number one thing, and I think that has gotten out of control. I think the fact that we are handcuffed with having to have insurance because we have owe money to the bank, I think that's a big thing. So I'm trying to get creative. In South Florida, we know very well that we have CBS structure homes with hurricane windows, hurricane doors, maybe not a new roof, but you know what's coming, right? I mean, my insurance canceled me with 18 years on.
You have to have the trusses and they
were like,
oh,
you don't have this. Now. So I paid like $500, a couple $100 maybe, to have somebody come out, and they sent me a guy, came out, paid, and I said, all right, we're good. He goes, oh, your roof is another 8 years. I'm like, oh, perfect. Come back, the insurance company says, no, we're still canceling you. So now I got to get a new policy. I'm not saving money. It's not cheaper for me. And I know we've done things to kind of help make it easier, but we've got to do more. So those are other files. Leslie, what other good bills do I have that I can't seem to recall right now?
Leslie, hurry, because we've got 5 seconds left.
Oh, 5 seconds.
I'm just kidding. Listen, you got a full plate.
Yes.
We got to talk about so many things today. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. And thank you for making this work. And I love that we were able to spend part of September 11th with you.
Yes.
It was perfect. This is exactly how it was meant to be. And thank you, ladies. Keep up the great work. Know that I'm here to support you in any way that I can. And, sometimes we should probably bring one of my colleagues in the legislature to kind of learn more from your experiences, because I'm sure while you're here to interview me, I think you all should be interviewed and, ask questions like, what have you learned differently today than maybe you did when you first started this journey. And I'll tell you, many, many years ago, our Hialeah firefighters, our brothers and sisters Hialeah, were having a difficult time, and they were hitting the wall with I forget if it was benefits or something work related. And the wives got together. Man, I was like, brother, I go, wow. So I'm always inspired by the immense passion and fight that you're all willing to take on and to help correct the course and correct the future of the fire service and the families, right? Because everything we do it not only for ourselves, to protect our guys, but we got to protect our families. That's very important to every one of us. So thank you again for having me, and I hope this is not the last time.
No, and thank you for everything. Thank you for always answering my phone calls or my texts. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Alex was a dear friend.
Yes, I know.
We remind everybody here on First Alarm, if you see something, to sound the alarm.
Save a life.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.